I'm going to try and walk us through some of this stuff so you guys get a better feel of what you guys are looking at, okay? So what we do first is we set up a TEM profile. For employees, the access is created through a CRA during the onboarding process. So if you do a CRA for a new employee, it should give them access to KFS already. And once that access is set up, you can go in and create their TEM profiles. For non-employees, you have to fill out this TEM customer form and send it up to Fort Collins for them to get them access to the KFS system. Once this form is sent up to Fort Collins, it can take anywhere between 3 to 5 business days for them to set up. Sometimes it's a little longer. There is only a couple of people up in Fort Collins who are setting these up for us as well. So it can take either between 3 to 5 business days. Sometimes it could take up to 2 weeks. Once the form is set up, it's the same procedure to set up the non-employee as it is the employee in the system. This is what the TEM profile screen looks like. Once the traveler is in the KFS system, it's necessary to create a TEM profile for them. This is done via this page. This page allows you to look up travel profiles and create the TEM profiles. Anybody who has access to the KFS system technically can go in and create TEM profiles. The TEM profile is the information pulled into travel documents via the traveler lookup. So when you're doing the T8 and you click that magnifying glass, it's pulling this profile into your travel authorization. Okay. So in Koala, you can use the jump to bar to find the TEM profile screen that we're looking at, or you can use the left-hand menu, go down to more items, and click the travel button that pops up. Sorry. Once you're here for the employees, you're going to go to this button here, create new from Kim. And this is where you're going to find your employees. Create new from customer is going to be where you find the non-employees that you've had Fort Collins set up. This is what the Kim screen looks like when you click the button. To search for an employee, you enter the first and last name and hit the search button. It should bring these results up. Sometimes it'll bring multiple, just depending on how you search or if there's multiple people with the same name in the system. You're going to go to the Create New Profile under the Actions tab on the left-hand side. And then once you do that, it'll bring you into the TEM profile setup page. If the prompt says edit profile, that means there's already a profile created for this person. And then you'll have to go back to the previous screen, search them up, then you can click edit profile to make sure all that information is correct for them. If it says non-employee, you're going to want to request that I deactivate that TEM profile and then start the process to create an employee profile in the KFS system. It creates issues in regards to them approving stuff, and them getting their reimbursements, things like that, if they're a non-employee in the KFS system instead of an employee, okay? Sometimes they can't even get into the system and they won't be able to see it on their action list. So if the search returns nothing, they are not in the system, you have to revert back to the very beginning and go through the process. If they're not in the system and their CRA has already been set up, you're going to have to talk to IT to see why they don't have access in the system or they're not set up in the system, or IT, okay? All right, so this is what it looks like when you click on the customer lookup button, okay? If you see right here, I have put the full name of the customer in there. You're going to want to use the full name in asterisk to look for your customer. KFS can be really finicky, so if you misspell something, if you don't put the middle name initial in there, sometimes it won't pull up anything for you, even though they're in there. So you're gonna wanna like put their full name in there. Again, it's the same process as setting up an employee. You search their name, you click the create new profile, and then it'll pull you into a TEM profile. When you're filling out the TEM profile, the chart code is going to be PB. Your account number is the account for the department the employee works for, or the department sponsoring the non-employee traveler. The address isn't changeable for employees. It always comes to 2200 Bonfort Boulevard. But the address for non-employees is, please use accurate information for your non-employee travelers. So when the checks cut, if you're reimbursing these travelers, it will go directly to their house from Fort Collins, okay? Emergency contacts are mandatory. Sorry. Arranger information can be entered on the TEM profile screen. Don't make any of the arrangers primary. If you make an arranger primary, only that one person can see the traveler's profile. So if you, Fabian, make you primary, you're the only person. The traveler can't see it. Nobody else on campus can see it. Okay, so don't make arrangers primary. You don't have to necessarily set up an arranger in there. Fort Collins has set up a thing in KFS where everybody should have access to be able to pull and look at traveler information as long as they're an employee of the system. So your email notifications are at your preference. If you want to know when the TA is final, if you want to know when the travel reimbursement is final, or any changes that have been made to both documents or any notes that I have put on there, that's where you would click all of them, every single one of them, so you get just notified for everything. I personally want to be notified for anything that changes on something that I do, so that's at your preference. Please double check all the information before you submit the account numbers. It'll tell you if your account number is wrong, but make sure you're using the correct account number for the person and their department. Travel authorizations. How many of you have done travel authorizations already? Okay, that's great. Okay, good. How many of you have had problems setting up your travel authorizations already? Okay, cool. All right. So travel authorizations are required for in-state travel that includes ghost card purchases, out-of-state travel, international travel, all travel advances, whether they're in-state or out-of-state, and all out-of-state no-cost trips. So if you're traveling, but you don't want anything reimbursed, everything's going on a travel card, you don't want per diem, any of that stuff, you're still gonna do a TA in the system for a penny, okay? And then once the traveler comes back, you are gonna go in and you're gonna cancel that TA. Okay, TAs must be complete and final before the trips take place. I'm always harping about it, but it's super important. Encumbrances for trips taken without TAs in place can be, I put will be here, but can be considered non-reimbursable. There are instances of Fort Collins not paying their people because their TA was not final before they traveled. Okay, ad hocs must include supervisors and the Pueblo Travel Group, which is me. It's just me, but it's under Pueblo Travel Group for approvals before submission. Fiscal officers on the account will route organically, excuse me. If the fiscal officer is also the supervisor, you don't have to ad hoc them because it'll route to them organically and it will still show that your supervisor has approved this TA. So our in-state travel authorizations are still paper forms. We call them blanket TAs. They are submitted at the beginning of every fiscal year or when new employment begins. That's just so we have a TA on file for you to travel anywhere in Colorado. Okay, and that means if you're traveling for any kind of university business, if you're going to pick up something at the dollar store for a party that the university is holding, that's technically business for us. So we want you to have a TA on file with us. All blanket travel authorizations must be completely filled out, signed, and submitted to the travel manager via a PDF email submission, please. I don't like paper. Okay. You first.
Does that include student employees? Should they have one if they're going anywhere doing anything for us?
Yes.
Okay.
What about, for example, we're sending students somewhere in the state, but just for that specific travel? Do we have to complete one of these ones each time, or we can have
No,
one?
so I would, it's just a student.
Mhm.
Are they not an employee? They're just,
Well, I guess a more specific example, like the students from ASG sometimes travel to the capital, or like they go to Fort Collins. So what does that apply to?
are they traveling on their own without a?
Yeah, on a private vehicle.
Yeah, so anybody who travels on their own, any student that travels on their own without a lead has to have a TA in the system,
Okay.
okay? That's for liability purposes as
So
well.
not a blanket thing.
No, no. If they're traveling with, like athletics does this a lot, if they're traveling with a lead, athletics will send us, you know, them and then a roster. Thank you. Yeah,
Mm,
I know it's all very confusing. It really is.
Yeah. So we do have to have the travel authorization and quality, right?
Yeah, are they being reimbursed?
Probably just mileage.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I would prefer it be in quality.
Okay.
Honestly, especially if they're just students or standalone students and not employees.
I just verify if they are employees or not.
And I know that a liability should be,
Because ASG, I think a lot of them are considered employees.
right, so
Yeah.
like work studies are considered employees.
They are considered.
Okay, so
So you
yeah,
should have one filled out, one of these
Yeah.
state ones.
yes.
And it's good for the whole year. So
Yeah, it goes from the beginning of the fiscal year to the end of the fiscal year, so. All right, yes, please email all of your submissions to me. I don't like paper. I'm trying really hard to get away from paper. My last job, I was completely paperless, so we're working on that here too, so please, thank you. Out-of-state travel authorizations. Out-of-state travel authorizations require a travel authorization be set up in Kauai. They need to be final before the travel takes place. TAs must be ad hoc to the traveler supervisors. This includes deans and upper management travelers. So this includes everybody, including the president. T numbers must be used when booking airfare. The TA must be finalized before you book the airfare so that they can have the T number. Those T numbers are then sent to me and then I do a recon of the travel cards. So they're really important. International travel. So the presidential approval is necessary for all international travel. The dean's approval is necessary as well, but the president has to approve your international travel. The documentation must be included in the notes and the attachments of the TA. Our last president didn't necessarily go in and approve travel authorizations, so you'll want to take the email or the letter that he sends to you and put it in the notes and attachments so I can see it. Per diem tables must be used for international travel. There's no grouping the food together and just giving me receipt. We need the per diem tables. Please use the proper country and region for the correct per diem. Adjustments to per diem should only be made to lodging and in US dollars. Group travel. TAs for group travel should be completed for leads or coaches of the group. All reimbursable travelers must complete their own TA. So if you're traveling with 2 or 3 faculty members, or if 2 or 3 faculty members are traveling, and all 3 of them are going to be reimbursable, they all have to have their own TAs and travel reimbursements. You can't lump them all onto one. Rosters for non-reimbursable travelers must be attached to the TA. The T number for the lead for the coach's TA must be used for all airfare of the travelers on that roster. So we want you to use the T number for the one TA for all of those travelers. Does that make sense? Okay. New Horizons must be used for all group airfare. No internet airfare is allowed for group travel. Do not compound travel charges onto one travel reimbursement. That's the same thing I just said, but
Good question.
yes.
So for example, for the group travel, does that apply? Maybe it's what it says, but I don't know. So for example, if a department is taking students to a conference or something like that, and only the professor makes the TA, does each student need to have a TA, or they can just put the roster under that TA?
If the students are gonna get reimbursed, you need to create a TA for each of them, but if it's just the leader that's getting reimbursed for all the expenses, then it's just one TA with the roster.
Okay.
Right, so only the reimbursable party, which is usually the lead, will be doing the TA.
I have a question for the international travel, like when we have a student coming from out of the country. But they're coming here.
It's usually considered in-state.
Okay.
So when they travel here for like, I know why. I see them all the time, I know why. So when they're traveling here for recruitment or something from out of the country, it's considered in-state because they are coming here.
And then when they go home, do I need to do a different here?
No.
Okay.
No, but yeah, like they're usually, and that kind of goes for everything. If you have a faculty member who, or like a professor who's coming to do a interview for a position and they're traveling from Russia or whatever, and they're coming here, it's an in-state travel. So I know that's confusing too. It confused me a lot when I first started. I was like, how? Doesn't make sense, but that's what the fiscal rules talk about, so. All right. Okay. Travel advances. So travel advances are requested through travel authorizations. Even if you're traveling in state, if you want a travel advance, you have to do a TA through the KFS system. They should not exceed expected costs. So please try to request money under what you would spend as opposed to over what you would spend. Does that make sense? Okay. More than $2,000 must be approved by the department's dean. More than $5,000 should be approved by the president. If less than the travel advance is used, a cash receipt must be done to clear the advance balance. That's the account number here. You're going to reference the travel reimbursement document or the travel authorization document, either one, on the cash receipt. You're going to take that cash receipt to the cashier's office and they're going to actually submit it into the KFS system for you. Is that right? That is right. Okay, so cash receipts must be done within 14 days of the travel being complete. Travel advances must be used for expenses related to travel for the university only. If you are taking a group of kids and you're giving them per diem a day, I would suggest doing a travel advance of only the per diem amount, but, you know, because you will be wanting to give them usually cash unless you're doing like group lunches or something. But travel advances can get tricky, especially if you guys don't return the money right away and I do my recon and it shows that you have an outstanding, you know, travel advance out there. It will tell me, the system will eventually tell me. So if you guys are doing a travel advance, I suggest you, again, you request less than you might need, okay, or exactly what you might need, okay? So basic travel information. Okay. For conferences and event registration, please use the P card to pay for conferences and event registrations. We don't like to reimburse on the travel reimbursement. I don't think that we can anymore, if I am correct.
What happens on that is usually you pay for that prior to your going on the trip. So we're going to say to you that you need to reimburse the university for that, or you're going to get reimbursed. You can't do the travel reimbursement until you actually go on the trip.
Right.
So if you register for a month or 2 months in advance, you're not going to get reimbursed, but we're going to call you and tell you you need to make a payment on your account, even though you've not been reimbursed yet.
That makes sense, yeah. So
Use your
we've been,
P card.
yeah, we've been asking people to use their P cards for travel, for conferences and registration, and then their department cards for like hotels and anything that
Yeah.
is large sums of money because,
Hotels now are kind of charging for the first night ahead of time. So try and use a department card that way, because you're not going to get reimbursed until you actually do the travel. So you'll be responsible for that $200 or whatever it is for the hotel room.
right, and as some of you might know, it can take up to 30 days to get your travel reimbursement back, just depending on if there,
If your supervisor's on
Corrections
vacation or something.
yeah,
happens.
approvals can hold it up for a long time. I'm a stickler for things, so like I send things back all the time. Yes, ma'am.
So with out of state hotels, a lot of them charge tax, that's okay,
Yes.
right?
That is okay. In-state, we really want you guys to hammer on no taxes, but out of state, it's a lot harder because I do think that we have a multi-jurisdiction tax exempt form, but I don't know.
It's difficult for hotels sometimes. Usually you have to fill out a couple extra forms, and if you're at the desk, it's hard to get it reimbursed. The
Yeah.
taxes already.
So yeah, we're a little more lenient on those taxes. So airfare, so airline tickets must be purchased through the travel agency on the University Ghost Card, utilizing the T number from a final TA. If the airline ticket is bought on the internet, it must show that it has a savings of more than $50 quoted to you by the travel agent, and the quote must be provided to them. Car rentals, we have mandatory pricing agreements with Enterprise, National, and Hertz. Do not book with our travel agent. They know better, like, so they'll be like, I can't, but you know, you can't book with the travel agent. Use the JP Morgan card to assure that our rates are honored and that collision insurance for you guys isn't necessary. Always decline collision damage insurance. Rent only the lowest cost vehicle that will accomplish the purpose of the trip. Travel reimbursements requested more than 60 days after the trip is ended is taxable to the traveler. There are no exceptions to that rule. So non-employees, it's more lenient, obviously, but for our employees, if you submit something that's 6 months past the travel date, it will be taxable. It will be included on your taxable income at the end of the year.
That's an IRS rule
It is.
on that.
Do we have to move the taxes?
Well, if you signed in over there, we'll send it to everybody. We'll send these after. We only have so many, so.
Okay. I can't read your glasses I have on, I can't see the screen. I'm taking pictures.
So for example.
What, Fabian? No, I'm just kidding.
So one time I used the travel link for the car rental. And then when I got there, they told me I cannot use the travel card. Was that because I did something wrong in the reservation or?
It may have been you chose the non-billing one, because there's billing
Okay.
and non-billing. If you use the billing, it'll go towards the Ghost card,
Okay,
and if you use the non-billing, it'll be where you present your own card.
okay.
I'm not sure exactly.
That's interesting.
They
Call
direct
them.
bill to us, so that's why you can do it.
Okay, I don't know, yeah, they say no, I'm like, okay. I ended up using my own
You're
card.
like, fine. No, you know, and you can always call Chris or and I can get Chris, but Chris is the one who usually handles that kind of stuff. But you can always call from the counter and be like, hey, this guy's giving me a hard time. And Chris will get on the phone and be like, hey.
Hey.
This is the
That
fiscal.
works.
I was traveling with students, I was like already done.
You're like, I'm done with
Like,
this.
here,
Let's
use
go."
my card. Yeah.
And you can, and you'll get reimbursed for it. It's
Yeah.
just, the travel card really doesn't provide any more, protection than using your own personal card, so.
Question, I get asked all the time, do I have to use a travel card? Could I use my own funds and use the same process, my own personal
You can,
credit card?
you can, like I said, like I have a travel card, but I traveled last year and used my own personal card because I earned points on my card, so I used it. Problem with that is your travel reimbursement, like she said, it could take up to 30 days. So it's on your personal card, which you're gonna make payments on. You need to make payments even if you've not been reimbursed.
Right.
So
Yeah,
And with the points, when you mentioned points of use, the travel card, the CH Public travel card, the points belong to the university. not
Correct.
the traveler,
Correct. Any reimbursement or rebate we get from JP Morgan comes to the university.
okay, so
I have a
pay,
question.
yeah.
Yeah. So we've had a couple people who we've had the paper stay here and we use the, area downtown. They used to ghost bill us, like they would just send you guys bills. Now all of a sudden they're asking me for payment on a credit card. Did that change? Like they used to, I used to.
They may
just
have
be
changed their
accounting now.
management. They may have changed their management. There are certain hotels in town that will direct bill us. But
Like the window.
Well, that was one of them.
That
They
was.
will, yeah, they're at home direct those.
So,
The window
Yeah.
will.
Cause I had to like, they want like 1 million papers filled out in order for them to see it. They give us a great rate, like it's only
Really?
$100 a month, but.
The Wingate is money.
Oh.
And yeah, it's right down the way, isn't it?
Yeah, it's right
Yeah.
here too.
And they do direct bill us.
I'm very natural.
Is there a list of the local hotels that we do have contracts with?
I don't think we have a list, but we'll make one.
Thank you.
It's probably a good idea.
I think it's just the Wingate. I don't know.
They have radio in there.
Yeah,
I was thinking, I think there's another medicine
There's
company.
two. Wingate and Albrandolian.
That I know of. There's a pen, I'm not sure.
I don't know where.
Okay. We good? Okay. So paying your travel cards. Payments must be made to your travel cards before the due date. Late fees are not allowed on your travel cards. Floating balances are also not allowed. Cards are to be paid whether or not your reimbursement has been paid out. Please submit your reimbursements with travel card due dates in mind. We are not responsible for the delays. I do have various scenarios where things are forgotten, and that's okay, things happen, but I will send a note through the KFS system. If it goes unchecked, and I check every Wednesday and Friday. That's when I do my action list. I have like 2,000 things in my action list, so I take the time to sift through everything, and I do travel reimbursements Tuesdays and Fridays. I will send you a note. If you don't fix the problem within 2 weeks of me continuously checking, I will disapprove it and you will have to resubmit it through the system. So that being said, sometimes that process, it can take a long time. So it can take up to 30 days to get your reimbursement back. You have to pay your travel card anyway. So please, as soon as you get back from travel, please submit your receipts or start your travel reimbursement to get it to us as quickly as possible. All requests for reimbursements must have corresponding receipts to show validity. So if you're only requesting per diem, you don't have to show your receipts. I will only pay you out the per diem as it's shown on the gsa.gov website, which, and you can't change the per diem rates. You can, so if you go to lunch and it's $11 and your per diem rate is $15, I'm still gonna pay you the $15. But if you go to lunch and you pay $35 for your lunch, I'm still only gonna reimburse you the $15. Does that make sense? Okay. So I need receipts for anything you want money for. So aside from the per diem, your mileage, you need to show a mileage map. Your parking, I need your receipts. Anything that you're requesting money back for, I need to see the receipts on.
I have a question on the receipts for like the parking and Ubers. We've had people have a few where they'll don't have the receipt, but they want to send in their bank statement.
I mean,
And you know what I mean? And they'll say the bank statement.
as long as the
amount,
dates line up for when they were traveling, I'll accept it. I don't like to do that. I really do like to see the receipts because when you see as an auditor, if
Right.
you see a bank statement, they want to look at everything else. So I just want my auditor to look at our stuff and be like, this looks great. I'm going to move on, you know, but yeah, as long as the actual dates coincide with when they're traveling and it says Uber and all of the stuff, like, yes.
Okay,
If they have the Uber app, it should show them on the.
Right.
okay.
I'll show you.
Good, because I don't know. If the car-
I want to make sure like this table, the hotel is automatically, the amounts are already put in there and you use that. for the table. But let's say they spend a lot more than that, we still are okay to put that amount there, right?
You're okay to change that on there. The per diem is basically for the food, really.
Yeah,
Um,
the
so-
lodging and the mileage you can
You're
change
changing that.
to reflect the receipts.
Now, if you're staying somewhere and it's like, the hotel's like $700 a night, and for some reason, and per diem is saying $200 a night, we're gonna kind of investigate that and see
Yeah.
if that's the actual cost, because we've had that
So I
happen where
get in
somebody,
trouble for that.
somebody went to a conference and there's hotels all around, and it wasn't even a conference, but they stayed at a place where it was $1,000 a night. And
I know who that was.
We called around to other hotels around there and found out that right across the street, they could get a hotel for $150.
Yeah, you don't want to get into a hot tub in a hotel. What is wrong with you? Absolutely not. No.
Sure.
Okay.
Hold on, she's got a question.
Just a conference that, some of my faculty take, and it's at the Broadmoor.
Mhm.
And as you know, Broadmoor charges, but
If the conference, if the rooms are at the conference where the conference is being held, that's fine.
okay,
Because we want them to be able to network with people at the conference, so we don't, so that's fine. If it's Broadmoor, that's fine, as long as the conference is there at Broadmoor as well, so. if
you know how they book the race
Right.
for certain conferences at the hotel, it's
Right.
like that.
Like if the conference is at World Arena and they stayed at the Broadmoor, then that'd be a different thing.
Right, and then we'd need 2 quotes from like 2 other hotels showing that they all coincide with the same amounts. So yeah, if you're ever stuck in a place or stuck trying to get a hotel and they're really expensive, just get a couple of quotes from like surrounding areas, and just show them to me and I'll be like, you know, we just need to know that you're doing your diligence to be economical for the university.
The state's money,
The state.
our money,
Our tax.
our tax.
My hard earned. Okay, so alcohol, no alcohol can be reimbursed. You can drink the alcohol, you have to pay for it yourself. I don't want to see it on my receipts either, please.
No.
Seriously, get your own receipt. It's such a pain. So yeah, you can, you know, obviously drink responsibly, but we're not paying for it. Tips. So tips and gratuity cannot exceed 20%. You can tip them.
But you're gonna pay for it,
Yeah, you can tip them 50%.
but you're gonna pay for it.
But you're gonna pay for the extra.
So, for example, when you're traveling with big groups of students,
Oh, the gratuity.
yes, what in those cases would they do it automatically?
If they do it automatically, you don't have to tip them. But if you choose to tip them on top,
Well, normally they'll say like an 18%
Yeah.
size group or something, that'll be already charged on there, then you've already done the tip.
right,
It's
you don't
all
have to
done.
tip them on top
But
of
I
that
meant
point,
to
but
say,
then you
like-
could tip them 2% on
And
top
the
of that.
When they say like, it is include 20% in those cases.
Well, if
Well, at
it's
20%, it's
we're fine.
okay.
Okay.
Anything over 20%. I mean, I don't know, Chris. I
I've
don't
never
actually
seen one
know
where
the
they
rule
actually
on
do
that.
it for 25% or something like that.
Yeah, I
Usually
lose
like
it a little.
18 to 20%.
They had better be giving you really good service if it's a 25%.
Well, they're handling a big group of kids or students or whatever that are coming in. so-
Yeah. I mean, I think our students are pretty
Well, I know, but the waiter doesn't want 10% on a big group.
good. Right, and I get that. I absolutely understand that. So agendas and schedules for conferences must be attached. They have to be itemized so I can see what you're doing all day. The reason I ask for this is so I can make sure that if they're giving you lunch, you're taking that lunch opportunity with them and we're not paying you guys for it. And I just really need to see like a full agenda of what's going on at your conferences. Rosters for group travel must be attached to the TA, and the final roster needs to be attached to the TR. So I want a tentative a tentative roster on the TA and then a final roster on the travel reimbursement. Room service, per diem cannot be requested if room service is obtained for a meal. Room service must be within a per diem rate to be reimbursable. So if I see the room service on your hotel bill, I will reimburse it as long as it's a decent amount and as long as it's not on your per diem table. If it is, I'm going to send it back and have you guys fix it. Okay. Changes to the TR. So changes will be requested within the KFS document and sent once. I don't actually adhere to that. I will send it like several times. I'll send it like 4 times before I finally disapprove it. But after 2 weeks, if it isn't addressed, the document will be disapproved. I disapprove things all the time. I'm not trying to be mean. No, I really understand that you guys need your money, but I also need to carry on with my flow. And if something's sitting in my action list for 2 weeks, then it looks like I'm not doing my job.
So when you submit those change requests or you share guidance, do we get an email notification?
Yes, you do. And so if you're not getting these email notifications, if I send you notes, go into your action list. I'm pretty sure it's your action list. And under preferences, it'll show you different, I don't know, things that you can change. And in there is an email preference and you click on the preferences that you want and then you'll get, it'll send you emails saying, hey, like something in your action list needs to be changed.
Can you go in and edit your temp profile to email notifications on that too?
I think so, yeah, but it's probably easier to do it on your preferences on your action list. All right, so your supervisor ad hoc,
She's a question, Wayne.
I've had a couple of disapprovals and my own account, like our own account. They, qualify money, so something, so it got canceled. I never received an email or an FYI or anything. It just got canceled.
So you're gonna wanna go into your action list and into your preferences, and in your preferences, you can change which emails you get from us or from the KFS system.
And also go to the specific travel reimbursement, and in the travel reimbursement will be the note
Yes,
that you have.
but I think what she's saying is like, she's not getting notices that there's
Right.
issues and so.
Well,
And yeah, if you're not
notices
watching
are
these
already
things,
canceled by that one.
yeah, once I disapprove something, yeah, so once I disapprove something, you have to go back and redo the entire thing from the TA. So like I said, I really try hard not to disapprove your stuff, but yeah, if I can change it manually, I will. But now that we're in the cloud, there's a lot of things. I don't know what the difference between one TR and the other TR is, but sometimes I can change it and sometimes I can't change anything. Sometimes I can ad hoc your supervisor, sometimes I cannot. So if I'm disapproving it, it's truly because I can't.
Just for clarification, you said if you disapprove a TR, a reimbursement, right? You have to start over to the TA.
From the TA.
No, just,
Yeah, so if
Another
I
TR.
disapprove it, yeah, so if I disapprove it, you can't go in and edit the disapproved document and submit it again. You have to go back to your TA and start a new reimbursement from there. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, like-
not the whole new TA.
You can't copy a travel reimbursement, which is really unfortunate, but you can, so you have to start back from the final TA, yeah, and so, and make all the changes again and add all the stuff back to it, so it can be a pain. And I apologize in advance if I ever disapprove, but honestly, like, if I'm disapproving it, it's because I have to disapprove it.
Just a quick note on that, it's not always, do that, just because sometimes it's the person.
Supervisor.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, so I am the final line.
Yeah.
I am the final approver. By the time it gets to me, it's hopefully gone through at least 2 other people. So yeah, if it gets disapproved by other people, I don't even see it. I have no idea that there's a problem. But by the time it gets to me, somebody should have already caught something, but if they didn't, and I find it like it's disapproved, that's already what, a week, 2 weeks. So yeah, I really want you guys to try really hard to get it right the first time. You know, it's hard to do. There's a lot of rules that go with travel. Like, I mean, they're such sticklers for things. I have the ladies up in Fort Collins send me emails like, oh, well, I saw this thing. And I'm like, why are you looking at it? Like, it's mine. Well, I just don't think, and I don't, I'll figure it out. But, you know, so like they really, Fort Collins looks at our stuff all the time. Okay, so. Okay, so if there isn't an ad hoc to your supervisor or the traveler supervisor, and it doesn't route organically, I'm gonna disapprove the document. It has to show that your, or the traveler supervisor has approved this document to move forward. We do not reimburse per diem for meals or incidentals for day trips. Unless you leave before 5 a.m., we'll give you breakfast. And unless you, or if you return after 8 p.m., we'll give you dinner, but we don't ever reimburse lunch. You have to prove that you left at 5 a.m. and got back at 8 p.m. I don't know, it's a big deal, but like, we don't usually just reimburse anything but like mileage and parking for one-day trips. All of your travel procedures and rules can be found here at this link. It's a lot, but there's lots of good reading and good material there. What's up?
Where can we find the links for the car rentals? Because I only have the Enterprise, but I saw that you guys also have Perks.
We do have perks. There's no website, but I can send you the discount code for that.
Oh, okay.
One more question. So I hear mention like, you know what, if we're gonna travel as a group, why don't we just use the citizen bubble back? I don't know what that means or how you get who you get hold of.
I think it's Dax. I
I
think
think
he
Dax
rent.
Charles and Athletics might be the person to call.
And then who pays for the gas or how is that it?
They once they get a bill from the university or from the state about the gas they've used, they will send you your department a bill for that gas.
Is it ID
mileage
or
that
something
you-
like that?
They'll
Pardon?
just,
How do they bill it?
they just take
Yeah,
like,
Dax will do.
they'll ask you for your account number when you rent the van, and they'll just charge you, it's for like 41 cents a mile, and that'll just come out of the account.
No, you're just paying for the gas, you're not renting the vehicle.
Correct, they're not charging, and, their procedures went down from them to about that.
Just a quick comment on that. I know Dex also has the card, so they'll give you like a book, when you go and get the key, and they have the credit card in there, so you're not using your own card. for gas, for gas,
Oh, that's
stuff like
cool.
that.
I didn't know that. That's really cool. That's the fleet taxes all the time. Okay. All right, more stuff. So state fiscal rules, yay. Okay, I'm gonna send all of this stuff. Most of you have this, but so we're just gonna go through the rules. I'm not gonna do the US numbers for you. So the first rule, travel must be for primary benefit of the university. Must have approvals, demonstrated informed oversight and documentation. That's basically all the stuff we went over. Travel charged to the state, regardless of the funding source, shall be for the benefit of the state and completed using the most economical means available, which will satisfactorily accomplish the state's business. Just keep it low. An approved travel authorization satisfies the requirement of a commitment voucher as it relates to travel. All travelers are required to complete a travel authorization and make sure all approvals are in place prior to any travel arrangements made. An unapproved TA has consequences. Travelers can be held personally liable for the entire trip, and no benefits are paid out if an accident occurs. That's a big one. That's very important. So God forbid something happens, you get into a car accident, somebody passes. Any of that stuff, your beneficiaries will not get your life insurance. And the university will not pay any damages or any of that stuff if your TA isn't final. So please make sure your TA is final before you leave the university. In the explanation field of all travel documents, provide an adequate description of the purpose of the trip, including dates and locations. Travel must be approved by a fiscal officer and higher authority or delegate. Department heads must be approved by the deans. Travel for deans must be approved by the provost. Travel for VPs must be approved by the president or the CFO. No airline tickets, hotel arrangements, etc. should be made until the TA is final. Any travel that is personal upon completion of state travel must be checked as personal, and annual leave must be used for those dates.
So we're registering them for a conference,
Them,
like someone who's going to a conference.
okay,
Like Donna,
okay,
and she wants to stay at the conference hotel,
uh-huh,
but if you don't book it, then you may not get a room, or her TA might not be already approved.
You
Okay,
can
so-
book it, but they can't travel.
Charge, okay,
They can't travel without a completed TA.
okay.
yeah.
So you can go
So
ahead and book
You
their
can
hotel
book it.
room, but you can't.
you can't book the hotel.
person cannot travel before they have an approved
Okay.
TA. You may, if you don't have an approved TA and the person travels, they could get in trouble, but if they travel, if they don't travel, you're still gonna owe the money because the TA is not done. You're gonna owe the money, like the university be out that $300 or
Okay.
whatever it is.
Okay.
Okay.
They cannot travel without an approved TA.
Employees authorized to travel shall be reimbursed only for the cost equivalent of the most cost beneficial method of transportation available, which will satisfactorily accomplish the state business. So if you want to drive to Houston instead of fly to Houston, you need to get a quote from our travel agency showing that the mileage that you will incur driving will be less money than the airfare, and we've been doing like the car rental costs or Uber costs when you're down there. You know, we're trying to make it more feasible, but you have to show that whatever method that you're using, that you want to use personally, is less than what we suggest. Does that make sense? Okay. Mileage is allowable. It's actually 60 cents a mile for two-wheel drive now. Presidential approval is necessary to be reimbursed for the four-wheel drive mileage, and that rate is now 64 cents. So if you're driving in a snowstorm and you do use your actual four-wheel drive, like, we will reimburse you for it, but you have to explain yourself and get presidential approval and all of this stuff for four-wheel drive. So when you're setting up the TA and the TR, you're going to want to use either personal vehicle, which will come through as two-wheel drive, or the two-wheel drive option. Okay. And apparently it's a big deal because I've been talked to about this before. Apparently the mileage is a huge deal when you're using four-wheel drive instead of two-wheel drive. Okay, so lodging. The traveler shall submit receipts for lodging as documentation of the expense and shall be reimbursed for the actual cost of lodging, not including personal incidental expenses. No Airbnbs, no apartments, and the most economical rates are required within reason of safety and distance of the event. So no Airbnbs. I think are we looking into that
We
yet?
are still looking into
Okay.
allowing Airbnb, but we're at this point, we're not.
Okay, so as of right now, we're not allowing Airbnbs or apartments. I don't even know what that means. Like, are you
Well, there's
renting an
insurance.
apartment for a day? Like,
There's insurance issues related to that, so we're trying to work through that.
right, okay, yeah. That's okay. So, and then the most economical rates within reason of safety and distance of the event. So you can stay at the hotel of the event. You can stay in the surrounding areas, but we don't want you to stay down in the Eco Lodge for $45. And you have to hoof it like 2 miles through the ghetto. You know what I mean? Like, I'm serious. We want you to be safe, but we also just want you to be economical. Fair is what we want.
So quick question on this, let's say if we got a group of students that we're taking somewhere, we get traveled through by a charter bus, but let's say if we want to have dinner in a hotel, and so we use an Uber to go to the restaurant, get the food, bring it back. How would we code that? Do we just upload it into the system as a receipt? And then
As
just
an Uber
ask for that
receipt,
money
yeah.
back?
Yeah, just as an Uber.
Yeah, it's
receipt.
just an Uber receipt.
Yeah.
You know, like, 'cause
And then
I'm
it's
sure,
receipt.
yeah, like if you're taking an Uber to dinner or, you know, to get to your conference, either way, like, we'll reimburse you for those things. Okay, where are we at? All right, so meals. Employees may claim up to the applicable federal meal and incidental expense for each full day of travel, not including the first day of travel or the last day of travel. Expenses on the first day may be claimed by the traveler based on a 75% rate of the city's per diem. And on the last day, based on 75% of the departing city's per diem rate. No reimbursements for meals provided as part of registration fees for a conference or for hotel that provide continental breakfast. I'm gonna reword that. But so again, if the hotel provides a continental breakfast, anything more than like donuts or a muffin, we won't reimburse you for the breakfast. If you paid your registration for this conference and they provide you food, we also don't want to have to pay for that meal as well. Does that make sense? I know we talked about this earlier, but just to be clear. Okay. And under no circumstances shall a traveler request reimbursement for more than the applicable per diem, no exceptions. That means don't change those rates on the per diem table, leave them the way they are, because again, if you eat less for lunch, I'm still going to pay you whatever the per diem rate is. And if you eat more for lunch, I will not pay you anymore. So, okay. No
Just one more question, I'll be quiet. You know that in the per diem, there's this like $3.76.
For
I know.
incidental.
Those are, yeah, those are your incidentals.
Do we delete that or do we?
No, you leave it there and you
Yeah.
don't change it. We will pay you for, so your incidentals, and I don't really know what an incidental
Forgot
implies,
something and you need to buy like
but you bought some bubble gum or like a,
a snack.
yeah, like your little sample size toothpaste because you forgot it.
Right.
Or, you know, like that falls under that, because I'm not, yeah, like if you send me a receipt and like, here, pay me for my toothpaste, I'd probably be like, no. But the incidentals is what covers that. Okay, we're done. Okay. So real quick before I start the TA walkthrough,
Yeah.
if you guys, do you guys want to see a TA walkthrough? Do you guys know how to do that? Okay. Any questions first?
I got a question, but I don't know if it's a question for y'all or Kathy. So when we're booking these hotels for a big group or even a dinner reservation and I ask for a large lump sum for a deposit, what's the best workaround for that? Because I know they got rules and regulations that they can't allow us to.
Any, you know, we can't prepay anything unless we have the approval of the controller of the university. So you would send an email to Juanita and just ask her if it's okay to pay this in advance.
And then, because I know she said there's a certain percentage that.
Yeah,
we can't do.
she doesn't like to go over a certain amount, so
Mhm.
she may say, I can only go up to 20%, but because it is, you can't prepay something, so, that's where you have to go back to the hotel and ask them, well, we can do 20%, our state won't allow us to do more, is that okay? Try and negotiate something. I will go back to Juanita and say, Juanita, I can only get 25%, is that okay? So,
Somebody over there have a question?
For travel in the state or in the city with the student, what does that like? In the state form or if it is in an event here, it's a couple of hours, 3 hours, are they covered already in documentation or?
Are they student workers? Or are they just, okay, so student workers will be covered under a blanket TA. And so when they become like employees, even as students, you're going to want to submit a blanket TA for them to me. So they'll be covered just to travel for university business. Does that make sense? Okay.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I lied. So, I've been telling individuals you have to attend your travel training before you can travel. So my question is, the recording, does that count as them attending or do they have to attend in person?
I would say that if you have proof that they watched this, and that's after we watch this and make sure it's okay, we'll post it, and then as long as you or the person supervisor verifies that, yes, they did watch this, then I would say it would be okay.
And that's an email to you, Chris? or
Yeah.
something?
And we're not using
Well,
we're gonna-
we may.
it.
So I know for conferences and things like that, priority trainings or whatever, you want the agenda and everything attached to it. But for regular travel, like you take a student somewhere, do you still want our agenda and everything attached as well?
I would say yes, just include as much information as possible.
Yeah, the more information you give me, the less questions I'll have. So if I can find it in your notes and attachments, or you guys have given me good explanations or something, then I will, work through it and figure it out myself. But if I have questions, then that's when I'll come to you and be like, hey, I need this and this and this, so I can piece together what you guys did and what's appropriate, what's not. Okay? No, you're okay.
When you're doing the TA prior to the conference, a lot of the conference schedules I've noticed like it doesn't say like lunch on your own or lunch provided or
Right.
dinner provided.
Right.
And so like if we upload that and then they come back and they're like, well, we didn't get lunch or whatever, do they then have to actually get an actual conference agenda while they're there?
I would.
Yes.
I want to see it itemized. It has to be itemized, because if I see, if you send me something that's kind of vague and it says lunch there, I'm pulling that per diem, like, and unless you come and argue with me, it's gonna, like, you have to prove that that wasn't what it said on the conference agenda, so. All right, so.
Sorry. Not that it happened to me. I know. So let's perhaps say we're traveling during the weekend.
Uh-huh.
So of course, Chris is not here, Nicole is not here, but for any reason, something happens in the hotel and you have to reallocate. Do we need to ask for authorization for that or no?
No,
Okay.
absolutely not. No, if something happens and you need to move somewhere safely or any of that stuff, do what you have to do, and we'll figure out the details on the back end.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah,
serious.
because like one of the situations was like the power went off.
Oh,
And they're like, it's gonna come in a few hours, but like everyone started leaving because it's a safety concern, of course.
absolutely.
But it was a big conference that was around all of those hotels, so of course the rate was crazy.
Right, and as long as you can prove that there was an issue, like, yes, we'll work with you. Well,
Okay.
my hotel flooded once. Like, I had like this much water, and I'm like, oh, no, we're not doing this. So yeah, I got up and left pretty quickly. Like, absolutely. Like,
Okay.
we want you guys safe, no matter what.
I have a question. Do we need ABF? So I was looking at some of our documentation for last travel, and we didn't include an ABF with like a large amount of money within the travel authorization. You don't need one?
No, ABFs are not allowed on travel. So, yeah, no, we have different things that you would use, like receipts and stuff like that, to verify what an ABF would. So yeah, ABFs do not go on to travel at all.
I have a question that was actually asked to me yesterday. I understand the blanket travel covers everybody in Colorado. I have somebody that they'll be going to Florence or something.
Yeah, yeah.
We still have to put a TA in for that? I didn't think so.
No.
But that
So-
was the question. I just wanted to verify.
Yeah,
that.
no, if you have a blanket travel authorization, you go and do your travel, and then when you come back, you'll do just a travel reimbursement. If you
Okay.
notice in the KFS system, if it's an out-of-state travel and you try to do just a travel reimbursement, it'll tell you no.
Right.
But if it's in-state, it'll allow you to do the travel. It's because you don't have to do the travel for in-state in the KFS system, unless you want to, or
And
you're
then
doing a travel
just the
advance.
receipt for the parking or whatever.
Yeah, and then you just put that in the mileage and all of that stuff in there and then submit
I
it.
just wanted to make sure I explained it to them.
Absolutely.
You know, with Title V money, they are trying to make it mandatory to do a TA even for in-state,
And that's okay.
because they need that for tracking.
Yeah, and so like when you guys have students that are traveling, I want a TA in the KFS system, even if it's in state as well, because I like to, this is an electronic record, so if we, I don't know, I would rather have it in KFS. So yeah, and that makes sense with the Title
Because
V
it's hard
money
to
too.
track that Title V, and they're
Yeah.
audited all the time, so.
And yeah,
the
I mean,
vet's asking us to do.
yeah, it would be a
TAs
lot
and
easier to
stuff.
find it in the system too.
So I want to clarify kind of what you said. So we do a lot of college campus visits in state.
Yeah.
We got to do a TA every time we take students.
No, if you're taking students, I just need a roster.
Okay.
Like, do you take different students?
A lot of times, yeah, we have different students sign up all the time. So we're going to CSU Fort Collins we don't need to do a travel obligation.
No, but they have to do liability waivers with Chris.
Oh, yeah, we got it.
And I
As
guess,
long as you have a blanket travel authorization with me.
and I guess to clarify, so let's say we're traveling out of state, we're taking our work studies, but they don't need to get reimbursed. Do we just add them to the roster? Or do they need their own kit?
You can add them to the roster.
Okay.
But if it's you and him and then you both are being reimbursed or you guys are both leads, I want 2 weeks for both.
Gotcha. So our classes do trips all the time.
Right.
So I've always opened a TA and I make them do the liability forms and I keep liability forms. Am I not supposed to be doing the TA for that now? I should just do the liability forms?
They're just students?
Yeah, students traveling with a professor to. their
Yeah, no.
NASA, or they're going to the Olympic Training Center.
So the
wherever.
liability forms always need to be filled out for students, always, no matter if, always. If the professor is the lead, we want the TA to be under the professor's name and he's doing all the reimbursables and all the expenses are going, he's in charge of the expenses, so he's gonna be the one you wanna do the TA for, and you can put all those students on a roster on that TA. Yeah.
Okay, I just heard him say like, we have liability forms, so.
Yeah, no, the liability forms are for the students.
If you don't ever reimburse anything. because we
Right.
just rent the van from Dax and then Dax charges us.
Right, but the TA should be in the system under your professor with a roster of everybody he sends. And the roster is just in case one of those kids go missing or like they do something crazy and end up in jail, any of that stuff, we know where they were at that point, you know?
So if we're taking it for the whole semester, is that okay? So they're taking multiple trips back and forth to Shasta, or they're going to.
Are they all the same people all the time?
It's all the same class.
Yeah, pretty much. It's fine.
So do they have to fill out a liability every single time they're gonna go? Or
I don't
just
know.
keep one?
They probably should.
Okay.
I didn't know that. So yes.
And that's just our regular printed out liability or the digital one that we have on the university website.
There's one on the university website. The one that- It refers to an event or a class.
Okay, you want me to walk through a TA real
Yes.
quick and a TR? Okay,
There's a couple
Okay.
questions in the
If you
chat.
don't have it as a favorite, what do you do?
Jump to.
I have a couple questions in the chat.
okay, hi.
Hi there. So I know that there's 2 questions in the chat, so I'll raise my question, and that is about conference end dates. So
Okay.
I have a conference that ends on a Sunday afternoon or evening, and I was just curious about best practices of when I would travel back. Would I travel back on the day that the conference ends, or would I wait until the next day to travel back? What's the guidance around travel back?
A good question. So, if the conference ends in the evening, it is feasible for you to travel the next day.
It depends on the length, where you're at, a whole bunch of different things. I mean, if you can't get a flight till 5 and you don't get back till like 10 or 11 at night, well, then yeah, you can wait till the next day. But if you get back, if you can find a flight that you get back with by 5 o'clock, then I would say you need to come back that day. It just depends on where you are and how far away you are. It's gonna change for everything, so.
Perfect. Thank you. So
So we
what
don't want people rushing just to get back, I mean, either, so.
Sure.
What was the other question?
I'm looking for it right now. I don't know what I'm doing.
Sorry, that was my question. I was wondering if we spend less on like breakfast and lunch than per diem, are we able to spend more on dinner as long as like the total for the day is under per diem for the day?
Technically, yes. So whatever you spend, I'm still gonna pay you for the breakfast, lunch, and dinner per diem. So if you go to lunch and you spend $8 on lunch or whatever, and the per diem for dinner is like $30 and you end up spending $38, yes, it's gonna be fine because I'm only paying whatever the per diem table says. So what you're spending, you know, for actual breakfast, lunch, and dinner doesn't necessarily matter. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. All right, so we are gonna walk through a travel